Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Cafe for a coffee conversation. I am joined today by the incredible founder of Ladies Get Paid, the fabulous Claire Wasserman. If you don't know her already, she wrote the book Ladies Get Paid. If you haven't read it, you are going to want to, need to, all the things by the end of this episode. As I mentioned before, she is founder of Ladies Get Paid. She wrote the book Ladies Get Paid, and we are going to talk about some of the new things she is working on today. She is proud mama of two beautiful, adorable kiddos that I love to see growing up online. I just can't believe how big they are getting already. And she produces some amazing content, and she is an incredible speaker talking all things about getting more money and jobs too in the hands of women and across the community. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, yes. I like to say that I specialize in worth inside and out.
I love it. I love it. And especially too with everything going on in the world, it is more important than ever.
Yes, yeah. And it's also evolving how we define our worth, how we define success. I mean, since the pandemic, especially, it's been, 5 years of intense introspection for a lot of us that then equals different choices that we're making in our career. And of course, that then has different implications for our bank account.
Absolutely, which it's funny too, because I have followed so much of your work since before the pandemic and the evolution, we'll call it, at Ladies Get Paid.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who may not know, can you kind of give the backstory of how you got into this work, how your journey started, pre-book, book, the whole nine yards?
Yeah, so I'd worked for a company called workingnotworking.com, which is a freelance network, mostly people in creative positions at tech companies. I wasn't a recruiter. I was in marketing, but I had this very interesting bird's eye view of the hiring process. And I'd had a similar job before that. And I just realized I think, a little less interested in getting somebody a job and more making sure the job is the right fit and that you're thriving in the job. And it had a series of pretty sexist experiences happen, some of which were very obviously sexist, and others I only realized after the fact. And it all kind of built up this groundswell within me to really want to help women in particular. And I was very bothered by things like the wage gap, the leadership gap. Of course, that we know all things in like the money gap, right? The investing gap and the fundraising gap. And I'm like, what as an individual could you possibly do to combat something that is so systemic and overwhelming? Where do you start? And I started by just hosting events. That's sort of what my background was best at, was bringing people together to have conversations. And I remember my first event, it was a town hall. It was kind of an open format. And the topic was money. What is your relationship to it? Well, lots of tears were had, and also some amazing moments of women standing up and saying, I make a shit ton of money, and everybody applauding her. And I realized out of it, oh my gosh, there are so many sub themes to talk about within money. I mean, money is just a portal to a larger conversation around worth, which again can be defined in so many ways. And my next step, Slack group. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start a company, I'm going to write a book. It was, I just need to give women the space to figure this shit out together in a way that I didn't feel. And this, by the way, was about 7 years ago. I wasn't seeing anybody having candid conversations around money. It was, for my liking, too polished. And I came out with a hashtag fuck the wage gap. I was like, let's just call it what it is and be pissed about it together.
Yeah.
And made a Slack group. Long story short, 55,000 members and 4 million messages exchanged later, I would say, yes, women wanted to talk about it. However, what do you do next? And from there, hired coaches, just hire coaches. Let's host workshops based off of the tangible skills that women needed to learn out of these conversations. And within that, really develop my own form of career coaching, which kind of brings in holistic practices. Like, you're not a silo. It's not like your bank account is separate from your values or what you want to do day to day. Like, who you are, what you do, how much you make, it's all intertwined, including your bandwidth, your ability to even do it, your energy. So, a lot of what I do, I like to say, is professional development made personal,
Mm.
and built it all out from there. But the starting point was always the wage gap. How do we get women to make more money? But when you start to pull on that thread, a lot can unravel, but you can then stitch together something new. And I'm really proud to say that, my life included, I'm my own case study. And also the women in the community, you start to make changes in one area and you realize, my gosh, I'm going to raise the bar for myself in all areas. And it just keeps getting better and better. It's not easy. Okay. So it's always going to be hard, but you're going to just feel, I'm making choices that are really my choices in my life, not as they were dictated by somebody else.
And isn't it amazing? It's like you push that one domino and you just watch them all start to fall. And what I always tell people too, and I love your perspective on this as well, is we then start to feel the pressure of, and I've been to some of your town halls and you listen to these other women and it's so inspiring. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I now need to go home and I'm going to go do this, and this. And I'm like, I need to start in one area. And like
Yeah.
you have to like pick the certain areas of your life where you're going to start working on. And so like for you, where did it begin? Like was it like where in your journey did you start?
Yeah, I mean, listen, for better or worse, I tend to begin when I'm having a breakdown. So it's usually when
Like
something's
honestly.
falling apart. I mean, like right now, I threw out my back. I mean, it's better today, but it's like, oh, I have to be taking care of my body consistently and not just when you throw your back. So, for better or worse, oftentimes we begin with, well, what is not working for you right now? What is the biggest obstacle?
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, obstacle to what? Well, to your desired work life or desired state of being. And I always encourage women, let's start with the adjectives that you want to describe the feelings. So if by the end of this year you feel confident, calm, grounded, creative, I mean, just sort of pick the biggest ones, that is a place to start. And then say, what's in your way of those feelings? What is contributing? All the things that are contributing. And then based on those things, how much of them do you actually have control over?
Hmm.
Maybe you don't have control, but you could impact or influence. Okay. And then for the rest of them, it is learning to let go. So a lot of it is shifting your focus from what you can control and what you cannot. That exercise alone can unlock a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also I think the power of having and knowing you are not alone, which I think is the magic of it was so cool. I was actually at your New York City event, like that first one that you had done back when things had opened up, like post pandemic, and we could finally like be in a room together and like kind of sort of be near each other without purely panicking. And so we were in New York City and like the magic of being back together and like having these conversations again I think also changes things and makes you realize like, okay, here are the things in my life I want to be working on.
Yeah, and I just met with a client earlier today who she needs to make changes in her business, and but really she needs to evolve her relationship with herself and then evolve her relationship with her business. And she's having a lot of fear. And I said to her, "Oh my gosh, first of all, I have felt every single thing that you have felt, and it's part of the process. Your fear is not your fault. Like it is an integral part of wrestling with something. Question it." And I could just feel, like, okay, this is not all me. And also, this is an expected part of the process. Therefore, I can almost release the burden a little bit. I can analyze the fear with some curiosity and creativity, as opposed to like this being a heavy thing every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So 4 million, I also the number 4 million messages, like that is just ringing in my ears. Like that is incredible and insane all at the same time. Like, how did you take all of that to then, and all of the events that you did, all of the stories, all the data, all putting that into then the book, Ladies Get Paid?
Yeah, well, I knew from the beginning if this was going to be a book about career challenges throughout your career, it had to be told through people's stories, since that's I think, the special sauce and what's most interesting to me about Ladies Get Paid. From these town halls, it was never about a panel going, here's my advice. It was, nope, here's my experience and people sharing. So I spent a lot of time looking for women who would tell their stories honestly to me. And they would become great examples of a certain area I wanted to explore. For example, imposter syndrome or salary negotiation or, standing up for yourself at work, things like that. And I have a couple of characters in there who come back a few times, making changes, like reinventing themselves, and then it became this interesting experience of getting their story and then figuring out how to format wise, stop along the way and interject my guidance as a thread in these stories. So I think the book is very good for the guidance it gives, but I think it's also very good for the format, for the way that it's presented. And I, it was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done up until that point. I mean, now my son's gone through multiple open heart surgeries, so I'm like, that was a breeze writing that book. But it really pushed me to grapple with some of the issues I was talking about, which is perfectionism and acknowledging that every draft you write will always be your worst draft. That's the thing. You can only get better when you're doing something like writing. So knowing, gosh, I had to be okay with putting out something that would be better now, which I'm writing another book. So, but it's awesome. I mean, the book is really great. But again, I think the whole point is you see yourself in the women and their experiences alongside, obviously, the guidance I give.
That is amazing. And because we have you here, and I get so many questions, especially from women who are at different stages of their career. So I would love to ask you, especially some of the frequently asked questions that I get from them as I am doing different workshops, speaking events that I see through their eyes and that I get from them is we are in a different state, right? Like post pandemic, the workforce feels different. Microsoft released the news the other day that we are in a nonstop workforce.
Mhm.
So, kind of a loaded question. So, unpack this however you want to. Um, how do we manage this, right? Like the workforce feels different, especially as women. We feel like we're never stopping working. You're a mom now too, so that's a whole different side of things. How are we doing all of this? How are we juggling it all? It's all happening at the same time. How are you guiding clients through this shift in the world?
Yeah. Well, knowing that it's multi-layered. So again, to my point of you're not gonna, I don't know, solve your workflow issue separate from solving how you speak to yourself. They're intertwined. So my joke is like get my book, but also get a therapist. I also I also integrate tons of therapeutic modalities in my coaching because my other joke is I've spent so much money and time on therapy, I might as well use them. And also it's a bit of a pass through. You pay me and I just pay my therapist. Um, so just to like know that walking into this stuff,
Mhm.
your body comes first. So time and energy, I would say energy number one. What is your bandwidth? What is your capacity? There might be some healing that needs to be done here where you are just not getting enough sleep. You are not drinking enough water. There's some like foundational baseline shit that needs to be taken care of first and foremost there. Also, where is your time going? If you feel like you're in defense mode, like people are just pulling from you at all point, how do you get more in command with that? And I think it starts with redefining your relationship with time. Something that was enormously helpful for me in this journey was using a product called Clockify. I don't pay for it, but I just literally log everything that I'm doing. And it gets me to stop multitasking because that is a drain on your energy. So I literally log what I'm doing at all times. And that has made me feel more in command of my time. For someone else, perhaps that sounds anxiety inducing. So, take it or leave it. That was helpful. And then I'm just very clear on my priorities. You cannot do it all. You don't want to do it all because guess what? You do it all and who's left? Not you. You've sacrificed yourself. So, how do you define a priority? Well, at least for me, it's what if I do it, first of all, chronologically, do I have to do this first in order to do my next thing? And also, what will I do that if I do it will make everything else easier? Like piece of content, for example, right? You want to write the blog post first in order to create social content. And then always asking yourself, is there an easier way to do this or a more easeful way of doing it? And then lowering your expectations for how much you can get done and then communicating it properly with everybody. So I'm going to say we, but I'll just speak for myself for a second. I tend to be overly optimistic with how much I get done. I would rather say I'm going to do less and then exceed that. And also estimating my time. How long does something actually take me? Those are some fundamental building blocks that if you can master them, then you can start to play with how much more you take on. But see what the ability to manage time and energy. Take a look at that first before figuring out how to set boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. There are some like work 101 that I think many of us have skipped over because we just especially if you graduated, I don't know, 2009, like I did, recession, like we have been in a state of panic for so long. Panic makes us feel like we have to move faster. I actually want everyone to slow down and be really intentional about every choice they make during the day. And some of these tips are ways to get started.
It's funny you're speaking to me right now because it's funny. Like so often we think we are so far beyond a lot of these things and
Mm-mm.
forget that you could be like a senior executive, CEO, C-suite in your role. And some of the things that I have some women tell me, they're like, I don't even have time to drink water in my day. I'm like, you might want to start with that. Like that is something that you may want to just get one of those calendars you put on your desk. It's worth the $10, whatever, just do it and like tally it out there and it might make a world of difference because you cannot buy your health back.
Yep. And also, again, at the end of the day, of these things, I always ask, like, where did my energy come in? Where did it leave? How can I maximize in? How can I minimize out? And then, of all the things that pulled from my energy, how much was in my control? How much could I impact? And what do I need to let go of? Because a lot of times you may think there's nothing to be done. There's nothing to be done. And trust me, and the clients I work with, there is. There's conversations to be had with bosses. There's, I don't know, email away messages to put up that set expectations for a 7 day turnaround of a response rather than a 24 hour. You know what I mean? Like when you say there's just no other option, I genuinely believe there's always another way in.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big question I get to is, especially in the economic climate that we are in, where things feel like they are changing 24/7. And you have talked so much about this on your blog, social media, and a lot of the coaching that you're doing, is I would love to hear how you are helping people and the guidance you are giving around the changing job market and the job seeking process, even at every, if you want to even break it down, it'd be really helpful by every different level. And I know it's different between entry versus executive. Would love to hear your expertise in there.
Yeah. So, gosh, I mean, I think the big topic for everyone here is AI, right? Is like AI killing your industry, it's killing your job. Yes, but it's also creating opportunities. And there has been ample research to show that despite the jobs it's killing, it's actually creating more job opportunities. So net, it will be better for everybody who is paying attention and finding ways to gain the skills necessary for these kind of future jobs in AI. It's something I'm talking about in my latest episode of Higher Ground, which is a YouTube show that I do that gives hope and help behind the headlines to job seekers. And AI is a topic I frequently come back to. So in my latest episode, which is coming out tomorrow, which this show will be out, you can edit all that stuff out. Just go to the Ladies Get Paid YouTube channel, and I'm going to break down basically the different job roles that are going to be created, slash you can be a person who helps create these positions by pitching your current company and also future companies. Hey, do you need a person who, so check out my episode on that. So I want to just comment AI is the direction to go in. The person who liaisons best with AI and figures out how to do work more efficiently with it will still have a job. My whole premise with getting work is you need to stop looking at yourself like a job seeker and you have to look at yourself like a business owner pitching a business solution. And these companies that you're going to, they are investing in you, they are paying you for services. This is going to open up a whole mindset shift for you that feels less personal when you get a rejection, right? And also, it's strategic. It's going to help you sell yourself to them because, again, it's not you that you're selling, it's this product that you sell. So, anyway, I have lots of free resources on that. It's called the LLC of Me. If you want to go check that out. Um, but I think it does come down to being creative. How do I bridge where I'm at, where I want to go? If you are not getting the opportunity, how can you create the opportunity? That's been for me at least in every job I've ever gotten before Ladies Get Paid. I crafted my job. I had a role that I outgrew effectively, and I went to my boss and I said, there is a need for, and I would make the business case. You are losing money if we don't do this. And I would pitch a project that then they would gain trust in my ability to do this kind of work. And then I would craft my position to where I wanted it to be, or a job that I didn't yet have, going to the company through a network connection. So relationships are very important. and saying, hey, I know you have a need for X, Y, and Z. Here's some ideas. Just giving them my ideas. They're like, hey, you want to work here? So everyone has to think like an entrepreneur, whether you want to actually be an entrepreneur or not. I mean, God bless, don't be an entrepreneur. Go get a paycheck from someone else, but you cannot think like a full-time employee anymore because the job security is over. But guess what? That can be a good thing. That is going to keep you on your toes, growing, more empowered to pitch. I think there's a lot of wonderful opportunities to come out of a moment like this. Again, not to say it won't be hard. You need support, and you need to just remember it's a process. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
I love that. And I love too, like when I have people on my team that come to me and they say, hey, what do you think if we did X, Y, and Z? And I will say that 9 times out of 10, they are things that have been like slowly trickling in the back of my mind where I'm like, ooh, those are really good ideas. Those are things that I've been like kind of thinking on, sitting on, but like haven't fully been able to. And like that gives me a reason to be like, wow, what a great employee that they could see that and like all of these different things and the value add that somebody will see out of that, no matter
Mm.
what level. Like if you are an intern all the way up to like the executive level, like I think it is a fantastic, like I appreciate you sharing that because it is a fantastic way to,
Yeah.
it also keeps, I think, like you said, you on your toes and in your role because you are constantly showing your value and thinking, how do we move this role forward?
Well, also, you're thinking like the business owner, right? You're putting yourself in the shoes of what's keeping my boss and my boss's boss up at night. And of course, you have to filter it through, are these problems you even want to solve?
Right.
If you don't give a shit and you're bored and you're in a toxic work environment, like, yes, let's get out of there. But assuming you're like, I'm still gaining stuff from this experience, then come up with ideas to solve it. There is a process to pitching. So you don't just walk into the office. Like you got to figure out, well, what time and resources is this actually going to take? Who will this affect? See if you can get other people on board. It's pitching a business, right? If you're pitching something that requires any kind of investment and time is money. So if they're allowing you to spend the time on something, that is a monetary investment in a way. What would make somebody say yes to your $20,000 ask? I have found this to be incredibly eye-opening with my clients when they look at it this way, because they also stop seeing themselves as this, please, sir, can I have some more? Like they're not asking for a favor, they're not being rewarded on like hard work, like which all feels so nebulous. This is way more tangible. And if you're close to the business bottom line, you are less close to the chopping block, let's just say.
Yeah. And also too, a lot of people will ask me, and I love your opinion too on negotiation, right? And when people say they're like, how do I get more salary? How do I get more comp? All of these different things. I'm like, well, you also need to think about what have you value added to also warrant more than just the typical raise or bonus. Like you want to see these huge jumps. Why? Like they're going to turn around and ask why when you did what you just talked about, that whole thing. Like I think that's awesome. Like if somebody came to me and they offered all these different, I would say yes so fast. So I'd love to hear too some other things that you think.
Yeah, and that it's a creative solution. So anyone who thinks, "Oh, I'm a terrible at negotiating or I don't want to negotiate," then I would say, do you consider yourself a problem solver? Do you consider yourself creative in any way? And if the answer to that is yes, then I would say you can be an excellent negotiator. I'll never forget my mom told me, she used to work in the arts, so pretty low paid, but she said, and she ran the organization, and she said, the people who came to her with ideas for how to raise money would then get more money. And sometimes it would be in the form of, okay, great, work on this new thing. And then based off of the money that gets brought in, you'll get a percentage, right? Like it's not always the straightforward, okay, your paycheck is higher starting today. I've also worked with clients who were able to negotiate a signing bonus, but not the increase of base pay. You know why? Because they came from different departments. And so just know that there are lots of options to discuss here. And the whole point with negotiating is doing your best to get them to share with you why and when would they say yes and work backwards from that. So first it's always just know what is the baseline of market research here you need to do. So for somebody in your position with your years of experience, with the value you've brought in, you're going to make between X and Y being the highest point. Your goal is to make the case for the highest point. Are you going to be able to get more than that? I don't know. Maybe not. So that's a disclaimer. I always want to remind people we're not asking for random numbers. We got to work within the pay frame that has been established by the market. If you want to know what that is, The answer is whatever your competitor company is paying for somebody like you.
Mhm.
That's just straight up what it is. So if you are a small company trying to look at what, I don't know, Meta is paying, not comparable. So who is the competitor to you and see if you can maybe talk to the person who has your job and saying, I'm doing market research. I think if we share this with each other, we're all going to do better, right? Making it about the higher good. All right. So that's where you begin. Knowing what number you're asking for, even if it's quite a big of a jump from where you're at now, shouldn't really matter in the case that you make because it's about both market research, work that you've done, how it's driven value for the bottom line, and ideas for the future. Get them excited about moving forward with you. Especially good ideas. It's like, well, do you want to pay for this? Then let's keep going, right? And then knowing they're going to probably say no or have resistance, already have a backup ask in your mind, whether it's a smaller number or a combination of, other full compensation benefits, so things that bring you value that aren't necessarily money. It's about finding that creative solution. But do start with that market research that's not on Glassdoor, but real people with real numbers for you.
Yeah, and I love I always tell people too with the creativity, I'm like, what are other things that matter to you? And now too in the post-pandemic era, I'm like, well, would you like more days at home because you'll save time, energy, all of these things, like more flexibility? Like, what are things that matter to you outside of just that compensation that you would still be open to? And people are like, but I just want the money. I'm like, work with me here, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cost benefit, right? So, like, if you make two columns and you're like, here are all the things that would get me closer to my goals. So, projects to work on because I get to increase my skills, or more client facing so I can increase my network. Because I want everyone to be thinking about not this coming year, but the next job after this year. So, what are things you can kind of leverage now to position you for more open doors in the future? And then lifestyle, right? So, to your point of commuting less, also career coaching or paying for gas money, but here's the truth of the matter. It is not right now, the market is not in the favor of the employee. Doesn't mean you can't try to negotiate. In fact, I think negotiating is a fantastic opportunity to look really smart if it's done in the right way. But you may not get the yes because employers have at least the perceived power now, that it's harder to get a job. So you'll be less likely to walk because the fact of the matter is the strongest negotiators are those who are able and willing to walk away. So that's the other thing. What are your alternatives? What's your side hustle? What's your, look for other jobs? I know that that takes time and energy, but that's why we're going to work on the foundation first, right? Making sure you've got bandwidth for this. You will be a stronger negotiator. I'm not saying you tell them you're leaving, but you'll at least feel more confident to ask or to stick to that big number and not budge on it if you know this is not your only option. And that's just the truth.
I think that was a fantastic cover of that answer, and I think better than I ever could have explained it. So I
I
appreciate you.
hope I wrote a book on it, so I'm glad to see if I can I still speak to it. I know I can write, but yeah.
Everybody go read Ladies Get Paid is also then the follow-up to that as well. I would love to cover one more thing as well before we wrap up our time together. And you had posted a couple weeks or months ago at this point. I don't remember when it was. You shared this on LinkedIn. And to go with your advocacy work on women and essentially everyone getting more money in their pockets, you had shared that an organization had asked you to come in and speak for free about, getting paid more. And I would love to unpack this with you because I see this happen so often that especially as women, we are asked to do so many tasks, whether it's, in the workforce, at home, for family and friends, you name it, for free. And this ends up setting us back so many steps. Um, let's unpack this a little bit too, because this post has stuck with me time and time again. So number one, thank you for sharing this because we feel like it just happens so many times to us. Like I felt so siloed and alone when I've had this ask come to my inbox so many times. And so thank you for sharing it because it was nice to not feel alone in this, but I would love to unpack this a little more and why it is so important for us to advocate for our worth and getting paid.
Yeah, yeah, it's easy to take things personally, like, oh, they're not paying me because I'm not worth it. People really do things out of their own shit, way more so as a reflection of them and what they have going on than it does for you. I just always want to flag that. Here's the thing. when you receive an offer, I don't want everyone to automatically, I'm going to actually contradict my own advice here. So just because I'm saying no to this opportunity doesn't mean that someone else should actually say no.
Mhm.
Mm. Because how do you build your reel, right? Or your portfolio? If you're somebody who, I don't know, just getting your speaking career started, or you're, I don't know, UX designer and you don't have any clients, you have to show work. So you are not as strong of a negotiator. You have more reasons to say yes than to say no. But the thing I need everyone to do, including these people who are like, I'll say yes to a free gig or a low paid gig, you do have to try to negotiate. Otherwise, you are undercutting the rest of us. That's what's so critical about this. We have to train, I'll just say employers, but the people with the purse strings, we have to train them to see us as collaborators as opposed to somebody who's beneath them. So if a bunch of us are just saying yes to unpaid work or low paid work, it's going to make it that much harder for anybody to negotiate or to stand up for themselves in any way. So even if you know you're going to ultimately say yes to them, just figuring out, and you can put this in, Claude or ChatGPT, a diplomatic way to say, just want to flag for you the irony of asking for free when this is like years of work I've put into, not to mention my time it'll take to give this talk. I'm willing to say yes. I mean, I would love it if everybody could first say, is there any budget? I know you said there isn't, but just noting the irony of this ask or whatever, or the fact that this is unethical. Is there no other way you can provide some form of compensation? So I do want everyone to give that a moment of an ask. But sometimes we got to say yes. And by the way, I've done gigs for a combination of stuff. So some people give me cash plus buy books plus promote me to their newsletter. Or they can't give me any money at all, but I say yes because the promotional opportunity, it's the exact demographic that I want to now talk to you about becoming clients of mine, and that will lead to money. I've also said yes to things. I don't regret it. I did it. I did it once. It was a huge conference. They flew me out, but it was an enormous amount of time. And like, they didn't get anything from it. And I really didn't need to do it. I mean, I got to visit my brother in Boston. So, like, that's cool. But I'm not going to do it again. I did it once. We're done now. They've asked me to back. And I'm like, there's nothing, everything is a sacrifice. Like, every choice has a sacrifice to it. So you just need to ask yourself, is it worth it?
Yeah, this is good. This has been like a full pep talk to me. So I appreciate
Good.
everything that you have shared today. And I know that all of the women listening to this as well are going to take so much away from this conversation. And I encourage I want everybody listening to make sure that they get a copy of Ladies Get Paid because number one, it is an incredible resource. And number two, it's a great way to support her in everything that she has built and is doing. And I want to end with, well, two final questions. Number one, what is something that you do every day that makes you feel wealthy?
Ooh, no wealthy. Goodness. I just gonna be very honest. I really like, I'm such a dork, but I really like smoking a little pot. I live in California, y'all. It's allowed. Smoke a little pot, and I just do a little self-coaching exercise. I'm launching a Substack, and I'm gonna share these with everybody, where I play the role of a client myself and a coach. And then sometimes I put it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to weigh in with insights that they're seeing that I'm not. And yeah, I get a little stoned, sit on my balcony, and I'm like, something's weighing on me today. And I just unpack it with myself. And I feel, well, A, I'm getting better at being a coach. So that's like what I do for a living. So that's nice. And B, I always have a really cool aha moment when I do it. I love uncovering insights about anything, but it's just so fun because we're way too close to ourselves. So to have that moment of, a little bit of pot, a little bit of pretending to be a coach, coaching myself, I just feel like I unlock whole new ways of seeing the world, which I'm going to define as wealthy.
That is so funny. That is actually a first. Most people are like, I walk, I have coffee. And so I love always getting a new answer, which is why I love to ask this question. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that leads into perfectly question number two, which is how can people both work with you and also reach out to you if
Oh,
they
I thought it was going to be related to smoking pot. Like, how can people smoke pot with you? No, we should
maybe that's
yeah,
what I'm listening to, is that
It's funny. I've debated if I should share that with people, but I want everyone to know, the experience of doing this kind of work. Like my Substack's going to be called Work in Progress. It requires an opening up, a relaxing of your typical defenses, right? So I think it is actually important for people to know that what is my process for doing that.
You're also in California, so it's so different. Like I'm in New Jersey and we just can't.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, people. I lived in New York for a decade, and now I'm in California, and I'm very happy about it. CoachMeClaire.com. Ladies get paid on all social channels. I also have a personal Instagram. Claire gets paid. But yeah, ladies get paid. There's also ladiesgetpaid.com, but I like my personal website a little bit better right now. So Coach Me Claire. I'm on LinkedIn and I've got some cool programs going on. I've basically been looking for a way to take what is a very expensive one-on-one coaching and then lower the price point. So it's a combination of group sessions, me doing strategy work for you using AI, as well as some video modules with toolkits. So it's a nice hybrid of like live accountability in a group, one-on-one materials, and also doing a video on your own time at a good price point. So check out, yeah, Coach Me Claire for all those programs. But I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to talk. And you are an OG, LGP OG. My goodness.
Now, it's been so long, which is crazy to see like the whole journey of everything and to see the evolution of you. So I cannot wait for book number two. And we will
Yeah.
make sure that we have all of your links here in the show notes for everybody to connect with you, get book number one, get excited for book number two. So we got to get you writing. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this episode of the Wealth Cafe. And we will see you all next time. Bye.